This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Dornall and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Saturday, August 6th, 2022. Dornall, how was your week?
Dude, I'm pumped. It's been a great week out in the great Northwest. Our heat wave is over, back to normal, so I have a backlog of yard work to get to. Also, in other good news, I joined the Trollopolis nerds for a game of D&D this week. Fun was had. I don't have much else to say except that sometimes you get lucky and you show up when everybody collects a 30,000 gold uh, windfall. I do regret being multi-class though, because otherwise I would have leveled.
I stumbled into that too with a multi-class character.
But yeah, it was good. It was good to roll some dice, get under the table again. Uh, the inimitable Daddy Warpig was our dungeon master for the evening. Really appreciate that. It was fun. It was like old times.
I have, we have now like 4 irregular DMs running different things in different places. So if we need anybody who needs a break can take a break, or anybody who wants to run. Brian is still our main GM, and he's running things most of the time. But occasionally, Macho Mandolf will run something that's in his domain, and when they can, I'm really, really insanely busy. So when I have time, then I will run something on the island of Bombrozil, which we've talked about before. So if you've listened to the show before, you know it's pirate cities and weeb fleet city on this giant, unmapped, unexplored, highly dangerous jungle island. So, yeah,
Well, I've
and they've
been
been finding some things out.
keeping up with my Sunday night game. Not John Dacre. The currently in Long, Florida, and fighting with the different factions who are trying to take over the post-apocalyptic wasteland that is Florida after the apocalypse. And we have the Jebites, and we have the well, there he is now. The DeSantites and the Buffites factions, and we're having a grand old time pitting them off against each other in the the Empire of Long, Florida is awesome. And in the hopes that we'll be around to pick up the pieces after the the fighting is done. We do a fair amount of that. We just confuse John's NPCs to the point that they start fighting each other, and it's fun. Where are the mouse cultists? That's a good question. That's an excellent question. We haven't. We've been staying in the Gulf region. We haven't actually made our way down to the ruins of Orlando, but that might not be a bad idea.
It's Orlando. I love it.
But that's that, and somebody who I will not name gifted me with the Steam version of Civilization 5, which has basically just eaten my brain, and I feel bad because I'm going to have to tell Kursova, I'm sorry, I don't have anything to submit to you this period because I've been playing Civ 5 obsessively.
It's like college all over again. Yeah, I
Well,
was gonna.
I never went to college. I worked there, but I didn't go there.
Well, let me tell you what. There's lots of. Well, I was gonna do my assignment, but I was playing Quake 2 the whole time. Hi, John Dacre. Yeah, lots of great people in the chat. John Dacre is one of our fans, and we love hearing about Long Florida. And you guys aren't playing Dungeons and Dragons though. You're playing Adventure Conquer King, right?
Yeah, ACKS, if that's what that stands for.
Yeah, Axe.
Which is very similar to the way I remember original D&D. And of course, I am not just a D&D purist. I am a retro. I don't like the hardcover books D&D guy. So, I played with the little white books and the little cardboard box and Swords and Spells and Greyhawk and get off my yard.
So you're not OSR, you're OS.
I'm OS.
Like you're OS. You are the people that the OSR are attempting to R.
I am the people
you and folks like Rick Stump are just Grognard's been around forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just some people adapt to change better than others, and I hate and fear change. By gum, if it was good enough for me to play in 1979, it's good enough to play today.
Well, we should probably introduce you. I know we've got more stuff to talk about, but since you're so into the gaming, welcome back to the show, Misha Burnett. We're going to talk about all your writing and what's going up new today. Really excited about that. But thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I don't know. Yeah, and that's the part. Before the show, we were talking about. Oh, yeah, I've done a bunch of these. I'm good at them, but that's the one that always stumps me, where they say introduce yourself, and I'm always like, my name's Misha. I'm here to fix the plumbing. I have no business being a writer. I'm a high school dropout. I'm basically been kicked out of. I did work at a university, but I worked at a university doing maintenance, and I just spent a lot of time in libraries when I was homeless, and I think that's probably my literary background is that. Well, let's see what shelves in the public library were closest to the bathroom, so that I'd grab those books. I don't have a literary tradition. I just I write stuff because my head's wired that way, and I've been doing it for a while now. I guess my first novels, because when I first started writing, I thought novels were what you were supposed to do. Been like 15 years ago that I've self-published my first one, and I've just been kind of making it up as I go since then.
That's actually, I don't know if that's the centerpiece there, but the homeless author. I think you can get that sounds like a good blog name. I don't know.
Well, I'm not anymore, thank goodness. I've actually. It was kind of wild. Some years ago, I realized, hey, my driver's license and my bank checks and my physical address all have the same address on them.
Yep.
I'm actually turned into a square citizen somewhere along the line, and I have no idea how that happened. but I like it. It's nice, you know. I've been in this house long enough that, you know, I'm looking at temporarily relocating for a job opportunity, and I'm just like, where did I get all this stuff? Where did this stuff come from? You know, I've got books. My God, have I got books? What am I going to do with all these books? So so yeah, and that's something that that I keep coming back to, is that yeah, I don't think that the traditional publishers strategy of marketing to rich people in Manhattan exclusively has turned out all that well for them. You know, I write for ordinary people. I write for the guy that fixes the washing machines in a laundromat in Duluth, Montana. You know, I write for blue collar people. Somebody was asking me about you know, how I would characterize myself. I'm blue collar weird tales. I'm you know, a working class Ray Bradbury. Well, Ray Bradbury was working class, actually. So so I don't know. I'm rambling. Feel free to interrupt and tell me to stop.
Well, no, I heard you. I heard you begging for help there a moment ago, and I thought, no, I'm going to let Misha just hang in the wind about that. I'm just thinking of that. Would you say the blue collar
Weird tales.
Blue collar weird tales? Yeah, I Daddy Warpig's off mute. Did you have another question or something to talk about before we talk about blue collar weird tales?
Already? You're throwing in the towel already?
I'm done.
Gone to me already?
Gone to you already. It's one of those days, man.
This is a bad sign. You don't usually go to me until we're like 11, you know, till we're like 45 minutes into the show. Sorry, I'm laughing. You can't hear me laughing because I'm laughing deep in my chest. That's a hearty laugh. No, I just
Okay.
I wanted to point out that as I point out every single time he comes on the show, Misha Burnett is the creator of the Eldritch Earth shared world setting, which began with a story in the first issue of Kursova, and I believe the fifth issue of Kursova was dedicated entirely to Eldritch Earth stories. It is a combination of sword and sorcery with some Lovecraftian influences, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. So they are excellent. Misha stories are excellent. The stories from the other contributors have all been great. And one of them, whose name I can't remember, and I apologize so much for that, is still writing them, and they're still being published in Kursova. So
Louise Sorensen.
There you go, folks.
Louise Sorensen, the Darla of Diadanth. I don't know. I've kind of prodded her about collecting all of the Darla stories into one volume. I don't know if she's going to be doing that, but she's got 5 or 6 stories about the one character. Yeah, she kind of took the setting and ran with it, which is what I wanted. I mean, it wasn't my setting to begin with. I appreciate you calling me the creator of it, but basically what I did was I said, what if you took an Edgar Rice Burroughs character and stuck him in an H.P. Lovecraft world? And I don't mean modern Lovecraft. I don't mean the stuff that gets booted around as Lovecraftian today. I mean the old ones on Earth before prehistory, before this goes back to like the pre-Cambrian era, with Shoggoths and old ones and all sorts of way back before Samaria or any of that.
It's
Pangea, the world's one continent. The oceans are fresh water.
365 million years ago.
Basically, yeah. So it's fun. It's and
No,
I it all
that's
started with the first call for Sword and Planet from Kursova, and I'm like, what's Sword and Planet? And I'm like, yeah, he's talking Edgar Rice Burroughs. He's talking, that kind of action adventure, and I just thought, well, I've always loved Lovecraft's prehistory, the At the Mountains of Madness, the Shadow Out of Time, little bits in Scenes in the Witch House or Dreams in the Witch House, music of Eric Zahn, some of the references in his Dreamland stuff of way prehistory, and I thought, well, I'll just put human beings in there and throw them in with the rest of the mix and see what happens. So yeah, I
And
like
it really resonated, didn't it?
it. Did actually. I got a number of people who and I don't want to have ownership of it. I don't want to have stewardship of it. And I say this, every time somebody brings it up. If you want to write a story in the far ancient world and reference that stuff, go right ahead. It's not my world. Um, it's not my sandbox. It's anybody who wants to play in it. Um, and that gets onto another one of my many hobby horses that I was talking about, before the show. I think that this whole legally bound, legally tied up IPs, intellectual properties, is just hamstringing fiction because, used to be, um, you know, Arthur Clarke would write a story set in Marsopolis on Mars, and then Isaac Asimov would, shamelessly steal that city and write a story set in that city. And nobody got the lawyers involved. Nobody said, "Oh my God, you're stealing my ideas." And I mean, so many things that, so many concepts that what if H.G. Wells had copyrighted time travel? You know, what if Mary Shelley's estate said, "Oh no, you can't write anything about somebody manufacturing a creature out of the pieces of corpses because it's copyrighted." All of science fiction is stolen. All of fantasy is stolen. Oh, you can't write anything with elves in it, or the Tolkien estate will sue you.
Yeah, and it's sort of there's a line there, and I totally get the reticence and how it's upsetting because creatives do shamelessly steal from each other. It's not supposed to be a big thing, but there are also a lot of people who turn it into a business, and in fact, for a lot of writers, the goal is to create that licensable IP, right? And that's stifling, probably. Uh, but that's where people, like, I guess they're coming at it from the wrong direction, perhaps from your perspective, right? Like they're trying to, run a business first rather than create
Well, it's not
good
even that so
stories.
much. I mean, you look at the business world. Mercedes-Benz developed the airbag. Okay, did not copyright it, did not patent it. They just said, "Here's the technology. Everybody, anybody can use it." Um, and that ended up doing them good in the long run. If I design a widget, I want other people to be able to design stuff for that widget. It's like the whole Apple PC thing way back when Apple was saying, "Oh, no, you can't write any software for our operating system, without facing the 7 tests of death and becoming a licensed." And whereas the MS-DOS operating system, they're like, "Oh yeah, anybody can write a program for this," and consequently, you had Apple fanatics, but most people were like, "No, I'm going to use a PC clone of some kind, and get whatever software I want and be able to modify it any way I want." And the deal with copyright, and Raleigh, whose name I hope I am pronouncing correctly, is talking in the chat about, if it's my words, if it's actually the words that I wrote or somebody else wrote in the sequence they were written in, yes, that should be protected by copyright. But it is the penumbra of copyright has expanded to it's like when whatever company wanted to sue people for using the phrase space marines. Come on, space is an open concept. Marines are something that every country in the world has. You can't say space marines are, a protected trademarked concept. I will call them, vacuum musketeers, if that makes you feel better. But the ideas are what need to be free. A lot of the stuff in my novels was shamelessly stolen. Yeah, Games Workshop was shamelessly stolen from William Burroughs. Nova, the Nova crew, and the Blue Metal Boys, and the Ambimores, and all that stuff. I basically stole the Cenobites from Clive Barker and filed the serial numbers off them and used them. So I don't think any of these people are going to sue me, because none of these people have ever heard of me. But it's the ideas. Once you write a story and you have a concept in it, you don't own that anymore. If you want to own it, keep it in your desk drawer. Don't publish it.
So that's your philosophy, of course, when developing your Weird Earth, and you're not writing about that Lovecraftian prehistory, but you are keeping it weird. And I want to steer towards your current project, which honestly sounds really exciting to me.
Well, it's called An Atlas of Bad Roads, and I always like to say, some years ago, when I realized that focusing on short fiction was what I wanted to do, I wanted to set myself a benchmark. I wanted to do 3 collections of my own stories. I wanted to do 1 fantasy, 1 science fiction, and 1 horror. And this is the third of them. This is the horror. I did the fantasy collection, Dark Fantasy, for Baby Katie Media, who does Story Hack Magazine. I did Endless Summer for Kursova. And now I'm doing An Atlas of Bad Roads for Kursova. And it's 16 stories. It's 16 poems that are not, I've paired the poems and the stories, but they're not taken from them. It's just I tried to match up the mood of each. That does include 5 of the stories that were originally published in Dual Visions, because Dual Visions is out of print now. So those stories are now available in an Atlas of Bad Roads. Some of them that have been previously in different magazines or collections. Some of them are entirely new. I've never seen the light of day before. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I feel, and I always feel this way, and I think it's important to always feel this way when anybody asks me what's my favorite project, or what am I most proud of having been worked on, and it's always my current project. If I'm not raising the bar each time I publish, what's the point, you know? So I always try to push things a little farther, go a little stranger. So yeah, and Alex is really behind this, and Raleigh's saying we were both trying to revive the short story. Yeah, and that's a big deal for me. I don't think I don't think the idea that people don't want short fiction, I don't think that's true. I think it's big traditional publishers didn't like dealing with short fiction, and so they tried to tell people, oh, you don't want this. But if you look at the strong literary movements, not just in genre fiction but throughout, have always had their genesis in short fiction. The whole cyberpunk movement. The cyberpunk movement would not have happened if it weren't for example, Omni magazine. There were markets for well-paying, good, slick markets for short fiction in those days, and that's where the movement grew up. And the new wave movement, which I consider myself the spiritual descendant of, in the 60s and 70s, in large part because slick magazines were publishing science fiction short stories. If you look at Harlan Ellison's, any of his collections, and you look at originally published in, and you've got, Red Book, you've got Playboy, you've got Better Homes and Gardens, probably. I mean, you've got the front line, corner of the newsstand, big business magazines were publishing short fiction, and that's where I think that's where movements begin. And yeah, you can look at, courtroom drama is one genre that I can think of that is almost exclusively novels. But a reoccurring cast, as a matter of fact, in between playing Civ 5, the short story that I'm working on right now is another one of my Eric Ruger stories, the hero of Bad Dreams and Broken Hearts. So yeah, and we've got Mongoose and Meerkat, which I should be, once again, if the post office cooperates, I should be getting my volume 2 of that pretty soon. Sherlock Holmes, probably one of the most famous literary characters of all time, was a recurring character in a bunch of short stories. Now, I will say, this collection, and this was a question that came up in one of my other interviews, these are all standalone stories, and I think horror, it's important to, it's very difficult to do a continuing horror character. as I was, in my misspent youth, I absolutely loved Kolchak the Night Stalker. But if you look back at it, um, Monster of the Week just got silly. And hopefully my roommate's still asleep and she won't hear me say this, but Supernatural got silly. It Yes, everybody loves uh, Moose and not Moose, and but the thing is that you get somebody who runs into a werewolf, and it's a shock. It's oh my God, you're suddenly encountering the uncanny, something that can't be explained. You do it again, it's not a shock again. So um, so these
Yeah.
stories, like I say, because of the genre, because of the tone and mood, these are all individual, not connected. Uh, the
But the theme, they all share the theme.
Yeah. They in my introduction, I talk about getting lost, and why so many horror movies start with, somebody who's driving across country or driving across the state or whatever, and there's a bridge out, or they take a wrong turn and they end up getting lost, and that's kind of where the title came from, kind of where the concept of that. That in between the spaces that you go to, and the places you want to be, off the beaten path, anything, once you take some unlabeled exit from the highway, and you never know what you're going to run into, and that's kind of where, hello back, that's kind of where, that, if I had to characterize the stories, they're about what can happen when you get lost. Don't leave the path. Like in The Hobbit, when they're in Mirkwood, it's the one thing they say: don't leave the path. And sure enough, they leave the path. And this is, don't get off the highway. Don't stay. I mean, get out of the lighted area, because once you do, you don't know what you could be in for anything out there. And as somebody who spends not so much time anymore, but used to spend a lot of time driving, um, in pre-COVID days, my roommate and I would go from St. Louis to Memphis for lunch. There's the best barbecue place in the world, by the way, Elwood Shack in Memphis, the little hole-in-the-wall place next to a Lowe's. And so we drive down there for lunch, and then we drive back. It's about 4.5, 5 hours each way.
Wow.
But I like highways. I like driving. I like, I live in the Midwest. I tell people that if the United States of America was a talisman board game, I live on the Crown of Command. That reference might
Over
be
my head.
geeky for everybody, but
I haven't played Talisman in years and years.
right, yeah. But I'm like right smack in the middle of the, and so in 2 days I can get anywhere.
Yeah, that's great. I love and even though it's a pretty simple, like this cover, and if you're watching on YouTube, I got the Kickstarter page up, which shows the cover. Even though the cover is sort of this really strange, it's just a backwards atlas, right? But it lets you know exactly what you're into. Like, you don't need any creepy imagery or anything to evoke that concept that you've left the beaten path, and you're not in Kansas anymore.
That's
Or
actually a scan from the map book that I use in my car, stains and all, and because when I came up with the idea and I pitched it to Alex, and Alex was like, he likes that, he wants to to do an imitation of a Rand McNally Atlas book, and I said, "Oh, I've got those in the trunk of my car," and he said, "Well, scan one and send it to me." And he actually flipped it because he liked the stains that were on one side, and he wanted to. And then after he flipped it, he's like, I kind of like having the backwards writing on it. But that's like Central Missouri there. I think is where that is taken from.
I don't know Central Missouri, but I can catch a few. Sullivan, Bourbon, Bell. There's some names in there. St. Clair
Right.
that might be familiar to you.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's really cool. Full disclosure, I already backed it. I think a horror anthology with that sort of theme would be right up my alley, and right up the alley of a couple of people I know actually.
So did I.
But so did I. Full disclosure, DW is on the Atlas.
Well, I appreciate that, and I gotta give a shout out for the way that Alex runs the Kickstarter, because he set the goal so low that we actually hit the target goal in like 2 hours, and hitting the goal that fast moves you up on the algorithm and Kickstarter. I mean, he knows how to work this stuff.
Like, I think this was before the show. Like, we were talking about Alex. Like, he's serious. He's not messing around. He is into making Cursova and all of his projects work.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think in 20 years, when they're talking about the roots of early 21st century literature, his name will be coming up. And I've actually met him in person. He's a very reclusive person, but he happened to be doing he mentioned that he was doing a Comic-Con in Little Rock, Arkansas. And once again, I drove down there, had a conversation with him, turned around, drove right back. But so I feel like I'm one of the favored few who has seen the mysterious Alex from Cursova. And you will never get any information from me. I will take it to the grave.
On pain of death.
On pain of death, yes. Right.
Yes, very, very mysterious fellow, but awesome. We love talking to him. We love seeing all the projects that he comes up with. And it looks like he's done you really well on this one, an Atlas of Bad Roads.
Yeah, I once again, I should have the proofs, but the post office has not cooperated with me. He's got his copies, but I haven't gotten mine. They were supposed to get here yesterday, but anyway, from what he sent me the PDFs, and I've looked them over, and his book design is always really good. We talked about because this contains both fiction and poetry, doing different typesets and that kind of stuff. But it's always real professional looking stuff. Even from the very beginning of Cursova, the full color cover and the typeface and the little descriptions on the tops of the stories, everything just he's got a look. And it's a look that I really love, and that's why I keep coming to him and begging him to do my projects. Is that it's quality stuff. I'm looking at them right now. I have the first 10 issues, first edition, hardcover, slipcover that I intend to leave to my children in order to fund their fortune. but I figure one day they will be incredibly valuable. Sadly, not likely this week, but
I hope so too. You mentioned like the making of early 21st century literature, and I think there's something to it. The stuff like the work that you do, the work that Alexander does, and everybody, this whole ecosystem, like you mentioned in previous interview, you said that this is the fourth show you've done promoting this work.
I've done more promotion on this than ever, and I'm kind of not good at talking. So
Sure
I
could have
either
fooled.
talk too much or I stay quiet. I don't know how to have a conversation. So this is really pushing my comfort level, but this is a project I agree with and I believe in. And Alex asked me if I'd be willing to open a vein and be on all these different podcasts. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it for you. I wouldn't do it for anybody else, but I'll do it for you.
Well, you're doing it for
You've been
you
on our
too.
show before, so
I have been on your show before. That is true. Yes. But I'd forgotten, it was such a traumatic experience for me. I kind of blanked it out.
we get that.
Yeah,
a
what did
lot,
I do that
actually.
Saturday? Nothing. That Saturday was a blank. Turns out you hung out online and chatted with a couple of folks on a show.
Brutal, vicious folks on a show. Everything goes. Man, I shot that conversation right in the head.
It was you shot it in the head as it was leaping off the cliff. Maybe Misha's onto something as far as the conversation goes, but that's okay. This is my job to keep things going, and I really want to know more about. So I mentioned that full disclosure earlier because, like, I'm sold. I mean, even though I know the substance is going to be good because you're a quality author, like the style alone was enough for me. But let's get some substance. You've mentioned that they're horror stories about getting lost or anything like that. Do you have any other teasers or description that someone who maybe isn't convinced yet, like, why would they look into this collection of horror short stories?
Well, because I'm all over the place. And that's something that this is my goal was to produce something for your lunch hour. These stories are short, they're self-contained, they have regular endings. You can sit down and read each 1.5 hour. They're not connected. They're not. So figuring out what's going on in one story isn't going to help you with the next one. The rules change every single time. I think they're accessible. I think I mentioned, being a blue collar guy. These are about working people. These are about no college professors, no writers, no, these are electricians and carpenters and plumbers who are, just doing their job, and something horrible comes out of the woodwork, and they got to deal with it. And I think they're fun for, particularly dark levels of fun. Some of them are pretty bleak. I do have the occasional, if not a happy ending, then an ending where everybody doesn't die. It's a mixed bag. It's a sampler because there's so much that fits under the broad category of horror.
And this sort of reminds me of the conversation we had Thursday night about short fiction, which you weren't a part of. But going back to bringing back the short story, this is the sort of thing that someone would listen to at work as a podcast or an audiobook, like maybe a true crime podcast or a like a creepypasta. reading on the internet or something like that. This is written form. This is just if you like that sort of short fiction that's been on the internet forever. Like if you want to know where the market for the short story is or the short fiction, like they've been there this whole time. They just get it mostly for free on the internet. But what you're offering here is sort of that just a pocketbook of those types of stories that you can enjoy, reading to yourself or in the quiet. So if you like that sort of quick or bite-sized horror, or maybe a creepy feeling, or that shiver that you get, this would serve you. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been thinking about, when you were talking about creepypasta, and these are the kinds of things that that people would tell, the kinds of stories that people would tell the new guy at work. It's like in what was Return of the Living Dead, and there's the scene at the very beginning of the film where the new kid is asking the old hand, "What is the weirdest thing you've ever seen?" And the guy says, "Well, I've seen weird things come and I've seen weird things go, but I got to tell you, the one thing that beats everything." These stories are the stories that follow that conversation.
Oh, nice.
You know,
Now that gives me a vivid picture of what to expect. Like whatever you do, I know you've got to go out on the road this week. Whatever you do when you're out at this part, you see the sign, don't turn. Because the last guy who did that, awesome.
Yeah. And I've got I've got one about maintenance guy gets a call in the middle of the night and there's an alarm going off in this building and nobody can figure out where the alarm is originating from, and they find a tunnel under the building that nobody knew was there and a locked room off of this tunnel, and it's that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that, and that's I believe that that not just horror but also adventure fiction as well is what happens when you're not looking for it, and that's the once again, I don't do anything new. I just redo old stuff, and so many of the old adventure stories. There was the guy that I was on a tramp steamer coming out of New Orleans going to South Africa, and the storm came up, and nobody goes looking for it. Nobody's and I think that's the continuing character, the professional monster hunter, loses that. I write about just ordinary Joes that run into this shit, that they're minding their own business. They're trying to get their job done and go home, go to bed, and eat a pizza, watch some TV. That's all that's on their mind. They're not thinking, about cosmic issues or the things that
They haven't been sent by A.D. Skinner to investigate the latest X-File.
Exactly. Yes, it's and that I think makes it more impactful because it's the kind of thing you think, shit, this could happen to me. That's what I want to leave people with is a creepy feeling that when they're the last person in the office and they go down the hall to pick up new paper for the copy machine, they're like, oh shit, I remember this story. I don't want to do this. That's the kind of feeling that I want to leave people with. That's the kind of when you go out to the parking garage to get in your car, I want you looking over your shoulder and listening for sounds and the echoes as if something is stealthily moving in the darkness. This could happen to you. You don't. And that goes back to the whole chosen one trope that I hate so much, adventure, whether it's, darker horror story adventure or just the regular, um, you know, swashbuckling style. Um, it should be democratic. It should be available to anybody. You don't have to be somebody special to go to Barsoom. Yeah, John Carter. Yeah, later on in the later books, it kind of made him more of an archetypical, you know, out of time sort of character. But in the beginning, the first, he was just a guy doing his job, and uh, Pellucidor, the land that time forgot. Those are all just ordinary. I want to give adventure back to ordinary people. I want uh, anybody. This could happen to you. This you don't have to get a letter sending you to Hogwarts. You don't have to be born a mutant. You don't have to be special or chosen, or because everybody is something, um, and my characters tend to be relatively competent, relatively fit, um, but they're not Superman. They're not even.
Yeah, instead of having a situation where these are feats that only could be completed by you because of your special abilities. It's an ordinary man situation where, okay, you're in an extraordinary situation, and let's find out how someone of your character deals with that situation, because you're not here because your character, but how you resolve the story is based on that character. Is that fair?
Yeah. I
If
mean,
I'm making any sense at all.
yeah. No, we're always talking about the chosen one and the hero's journey, um, and that's a good point. Is that um, it goes back to kind of kind of making adventure the exclusive property of the hero. Well, a hero is just somebody who ducks at the right time when the bullets start flying. You know, um, anybody can be a hero, and of course the corollary to that is anybody can be a villain too. Um, the Now, in this particular collection, my antagonists are largely supernatural creatures, but not always. Not always. I've got a straight crime story that it's just when the bell rings and you come out of your corner swinging. That's what matters. That's what. Uh, can you go the distance or not? And none of us wanted to know that.
Um, so let's get a taste. I have understood, or I asked before the show if there's an excerpt or something that you would like to read out of it to get us a better feel for what's in there. Have you selected something?
Um, doo-doo-doo. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this one. It's called "Letters from the Front." It's a poem, and it is the front piece to my story, "The Summer of Love," which, if anybody out there has read Dual Visions, is one of the ones that was originally published in Dual Visions. But anyway, here we go. Letters from the front. Pass your letters down the line, boys. Pass your letters back. The quartermaster hefted the great and greasy sack. We'll send them back to base HQ and they'll send them home from there. The quartermaster's words were soft and scarce disturbed the air. If you don't know what to write, the sergeant's voice was also low. Start out with, I love you. That's always apropos. You can say that we're advancing, but you can't say where to. Not that we know anyway, muttered someone in the crew. Is mail call finished? Asked the captain as he stood before the ranks. Seal your letters, send them off with an appointment with some tanks. We want them safely on the train before the foe begins to shell. We're skipping lunch today, boys. Tonight we feast in hell.
Hmm. That's delightfully dark. Thank you for sharing.
But that's the kind of thing, and you know, I've got poetry is also something that should belong to everybody. The idea that it's some sort of rarefied art form only available to people with an MFA degree, that's nonsense. It used to be working man's art, and it should be again. You know, sure, Byron was a lord of the realm, but Keats was a medical student. You know, Coleridge was. Nobody's quite sure what Coleridge was, but he was certainly it. But you know, it's art belongs to everybody. Art is not something that it's a basic human need like food or water. You know, it's not just consuming it and creating it and the I think the worst thing that has happened to modern Western civilization is the idea that people need somebody's permission to create art. That you have to have an official authority say yes, you are qualified to make art. You know, whether that's a publisher or a university or a reviewer at the New York Review of Books or whatever. The heck with those people. Do it and do what you like and read what you like and watch what you like and make what you like and pick up a pen, pick up a piece of paper and just do it. The time is now today. What is today? The 6th of August, 2022. If you've been waiting for a sign from God to tell you that you need to be creating art, this is it. I am speaking ex cathedra here. Do it now. There is no tomorrow. There is no later. Get it done. So
I love it. I love it. Stop worrying about your Instagram and your YouTube views and what other people think about it, or stop worrying about being bad because, first of all, you are bad. Second of all, nobody cares. So do it.
Yeah, and the only way to get better is to keep doing it. And I am in 3 days. I'm going to be 59 years old, and I have been writing since I could hold a pencil. Probably I wrote my first stories when I was 5 or 6. So it takes a long time. And that's another thing that I keep harping on is that, it's not so much write every day as write every year. It's going to take time. There are people who are really talented, really young. Edna St. Vincent Millay, who I just am absolutely in love with, but wrote incredibly fantastic stuff. She published Renaissance when she was like 18, and the publisher didn't believe that she had really written it. But for most of us, you got to write a lot of bad stuff. But the good news is you keep doing it and the bad stuff gets better. But the only way, there's no way around it except through it. The only way to do it is to do it. And that means putting in the hours and putting in the time and sitting there at your desk with a pencil in your hand when you'd rather be someplace else.
Amen. Just like anything in life.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, and I think it's great that you're getting the support and recognition for all your hard work by having this book out, and I hope everybody grabs it and enjoys it. We are now into extra innings or bonus time or sudden death, depending on your sports metaphor of choice. So let's open it up. Daddy Warpig, any questions or anything you have for Misha? Anything from the chat? If you have got a question, type it now. It's your last chance.
I just want to say that I'm really looking forward to the book because I think the idea is intriguing. And just describing the story about the alarm in the basement, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a story I want to read right now. So, I'm looking forward to it. That's one of the better pitches we've had on the show.
Oh, well,
Love it.
That's one of the things we've learned during the show is that most writers don't think in terms of like making their stories or books sound appealing. They
It's a different
do
skill,
a
isn't
lot.
it?
Yeah, they do a lot with like, hey, here's the ideas I was having that made me think of writing this story, which, once people are interested in your book or have read your book and are kind of fans of it, yeah, that's something they're interested in. But when you're doing a Kickstarter or when you're trying to get people to buy your book, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. What they're looking for is something that makes them think, oh, that sounds cool. That's tantalizing. That's alluring. That draws me in. They want a little bit of that fairy glamour, right? That shiny stuff sprinkled on the book that makes them want to read it. And yeah, see, that's what your description of your story. And maybe that was just a bare description in your mind when you were saying it, but that's still, that's still something cool. It opened up a mystery. It made it seem interesting, and I wish more people who came on the show would do that and make their books seem intriguing, so that you would want to read them.
I've got actually, Raleigh's got another question that he came up about GPS relationships to your stories. And I've got a section from that particular story that I want to read in answer to his question.
Okay.
Which is the little bit of background. This is Eddie, and Eddie just got woken up at a call in the middle of the night to go in to do a job. He was fully awake by the time he turned on the radio in his truck and lit a cigarette. He found the call address in his map book. Eddie liked didn't like map apps. He didn't trust them. He liked his old utility company map book, damn it, and it annoyed him that new editions were getting tough to find these days. One big EMP and half the country would starve trying to find their way to the grocery store. That's how I feel about GPSs. And I'm old school. I mean, I've been a road service tech since the middle 1980s, and you had the Laclede gas map book on the seat next to you, and you got to where you could use your cell phone and the map book and eat a sandwich and drive all at the same time. What aspects does your setting rip off from others?
Great question from Fiona Wolf in the chat.
Yeah. Actually, I have one that is blatantly a ripoff of Lovecraft's story, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and it's not really a spoiler to give that away. It's pretty much obvious from the onset what it is, which is probably the happiest story in this collection, interestingly enough, because when I read The Shadow over Innsmouth, the ending where we're going to go and dynamite the reef and kill all the deep ones, I'm like, why What are they doing? They're just wanting to live the Thomas Guides. Yes, Thomas Guides rock. They just want to live their life and go into the sea when they get old. So I wanted to write a story about a deep one who is okay with being a deep one. I mean, he's just living his ordinary. Of course, he's an electrician because everybody writes an electrician, but it's like, what if you took that story and wrote it from the point of view of somebody who grew up in Innsmouth and just kind of resigned himself to it, so yeah, that one's ripped off. My last story in the collection, the Lord is the happiest. Yeah, that is kind of the happiest. The Lord of Slow Candles. I didn't rip off a specific setting, but I ripped off a style of writing. That is my attempt to write a Tim Powers style story, where I took a homeless bag lady that hangs around the convenience store in the middle of the night and buys things with change. And I thought to myself, what if everything that she does that looks really weird to ordinary people actually makes sense from her perspective? What if there's a rational reason why she pays with change? What if there's a logical explanation for wearing 16 layers of clothes, So there's that.
Awesome.
Got another one, A Cup of Kindness, that's a ripoff of A Christmas Carol, except it's set at New Year's Eve instead of Christmas. So yeah, I've got all kinds of influences.
I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to it. I think we're out of questions now, so I think we'll leave it for today. Really appreciate you coming on, Misha. Great to talk to you again. I love seeing what you are up to, and I do pray for the success of the Kickstarter, which is already finished, and I hope I have a lot more people check it out.
I would love for it to get to the point where the souvenir keychains are matched as a stretch goal, but that's 8,000 and it's only running till like next Tuesday, so that's
Well, all right, we'll find another few thousand, and we can have keychains. Maybe we'll have to do that independently.
Yeah, and also, not just and I always want to say one last thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise, is that I don't like saying support me because I'm an independent, or support me because I need the money, or my cat needs food, or whatever. I think I honestly believe that it's good value. I honestly believe that you'll get what you pay for, and then some. If I didn't, I wouldn't have published it. So there, I'm done.
All right. Well, thanks for the extra pitch. Daddy Warpig, thanks so much for being the best co-host in the podcast business. And I'm done for this week. So please, last thoughts, take it away.
All right. Well, obviously, we want to thank everybody who came and listened and participated in the chat. All of the unusually intelligent people who are our audience. And we want to thank everyone who will listen later. You can get our show just about every week at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on youtube.com/Geek Gab. That is youtube.com/Geek Gab. And you can also catch us on the Google Play Store, on SoundCloud.com, and on the Apple iTunes Store. So you can download us on the device of your choice, or listen to us on your web browser, or just download us to your computer. We are signing out for today, folks. But don't you worry. Don't you fret. We will be back.